Wes and I are going to team teach this, and I'm going to say Wes is my boss when it comes to this presentation. So is there anything you wanted to mention real quick, Wes, before I get started on my half?
No, just confirm that everyone can see that presentation.
We can see it great.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started then. Like I said, I will talk for a few slides and then Wes will wrap up the rest of our slides. So first off, I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. So I've worked with USU. My career has been about 5-6 years long now, and I've spoken at this several times. So fortunately, you don't have to listen to me talk about weeds this year. I think I beat the dead horse with puncture vine for a while. So, but hopefully it was really useful to everyone. Anyways, one of the other questions that we get a lot as county faculty is, what should I grow? What varieties should I grow? And I remember when I was focused mostly on, and it's a really good question, and it kind of happens whether it's alfalfa, vegetables, berry bushes, fruit trees, or even pastures. And with pasture, it was a really easy question for me to answer. There are about 5 or 6 good forage grass varieties that we were able to test in over 3 years, clip and cut and put them in different combos and see kind of what worked well. But it's not so easy when it comes to vegetables. The situation's a lot trickier given that there's probably 12 all-star crops when it comes to vegetable production in the state. And out of those, there's, hundreds of different varieties. So with us being the experts, it kind of throws Wes and I into an existential crisis in that we're presenting this constructed fiction of what the very best is, variety wise. And the reason for that is just the sheer amount of variability. When you look at Matt's presentation with the high tunnels, there were 625 different combinations for that venting system. And then when you look here in Utah at our average freeze-free days, that's not even taking into account soil types, max temperature, what our irrigation's like. Just looking at average freeze-free days across Utah, you can see that it ranges between over 200 freeze-free days to maybe closer to 60, where Wes is at up on the Wasatch Back. And so climate's very different around the state, and then climate here in Utah is very different from the resources that we have in other areas of the country. Go ahead and advance. So let's look a little bit more at this current situation. There are resources out there. Social media can be a great resource, but I want you to think about it for a second with me. How many times have you been on a social media platform? I'll use Instagram as an example, where you'll see a story posted about a really awesome variety that somebody's touting it as exceptional, and you're like, oh, I've got to save that. And then you save the story or the information from the video, even screenshot it, and you can't ever find it the next year. So while social media is great, it has a limited reach. We all are subject to our algorithms. My algorithm really likes seeing stuff from the Baker Creek Rare Seeds guy with his rose-colored glasses. And it's very effective marketing, but my algorithm isn't necessarily showing me stuff from True Leaf Market or Johnny's or Burpee or anyone else. And so I have a little bit of tunnel vision. I'm seeing through a peephole when I look at it that way. And I think looking through a peephole when it comes to variety selection is something that kind of continues on. So yeah, reach can be very limited with social media. You know, if you've only got 200 people on your Instagram because you're lame like me, you know, that the reach could be really limiting for you. Seed catalogs are great. I've got 8 catalogs on my desk from different companies. And so I've got a few hundred varieties of tomatoes, for example, to look at right here. But that certainly isn't all of them. And where we're seeing reviews like this kale review right here, Nero di Toscana, it's from Ohio. That person's recommending it. They love it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that review is going to be working well for us. You know, where your seed company's at, they're going to have their trials set up and they're going to try to do legit applied research in some cases. And so it can be great, but it's not done here per se. So expanding beyond social media and our seed companies that are major resources, we also have extension publications. And I want you to think for a second about how what Milena presented at the beginning of this session. You know, she talked a lot about where her research interests are and where she's at in her career. I mentioned how I've done a study on pasture varieties. And then we have our previous vegetable specialist, Dan Dross, that spent over 30 years doing applied research projects. And I've assisted him with Brussels sprouts and onions and a few other things. I know he did a lot with asparagus, and he's done probably a trial on just about every single one of our all-star vegetables. But even spending 30 years and then adding my experience, Wes's experience, everybody here, Katie, that's really passionate about vegetables, onto what Milena's done, we still haven't even scratched the surface in extension with our personnel power, our time that we have to perform those types of variety trials. And so while we have some great resources created, there's obviously holes. And then the dates of when those were published aren't always up to date and immediate, or maybe something that was done in Weber County, like our onion variety trial, isn't going to really apply to somebody that's trying to do something down in St. George or out on the Wasatch Back or even in Rich County. Okay. And so, yeah, our variety trials could be really useful to many of us, but even then they were kind of done to help the Utah Onion Association, you know, those commercial growers. And are they always going to have the same needs and goals as a smaller grower? And the answer is, while there will probably be a lot of overlap, it'd be very pretentious for me to say, you know, what we found in our onion variety trial is always going to be applicable to you where you're growing. And so while those are great things, they're not always applicable. So, you know, the public is also a very big resource. And yeah, social media can help us gather some of that. But I don't think it'd be possible for Wes, Milena, and I to go and comb through everybody's social media posts and get feedback from the public there. We have our master gardeners that we train that can tell us, you know, I've been growing, let's see, sweet gem watermelon for 3 years now, and it's amazing. I love it. It has a high Brix. It's delicious. It has a beautiful rind. And for me to go and say, oh yeah, go ahead and try sweet gem, but then I overlook saying, well, you need sugar baby to be a pollinizer, or you need wingman to be a pollinizer because it's a triploid watermelon, right? And so how do we consolidate all of this community knowledge, but then make sure that we have it in a good usable form? You know, you'll see that right here on Wes, if you don't mind going back real quick, you'll see if you look at those social media posts, I mean, 30 people answered that one person's question, 45 answered that one, and 56 answered that one about Utah County. But it's fleeting, doesn't last. We don't really have a good structure to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples rather than apples to oranges. Go ahead, Wes. So our goal is to kind of create because Wes and I are always in crisis with people looking towards us, asking, you're the experts, tell me what's going to work best. Wes and I are really trying to, rather than look through that peephole, we're trying to look through our goal is to look through everybody's peepholes all at once so that we can create that dot map of an actual painting and get a real idea of what's going on. So create a resource containing hyper local information on vegetable varieties. Okay, that's our goal. Has this been done before? Well, yes, it has. So Wes is going to talk a little bit about what's been done in other areas. And we're taking from those things, like what you'll see, what was done in New York and elsewhere, out of Cornell. And we're wanting to make a Utah version that I think fits us a little bit better, knowing how diverse our climate and our geography is. So with that, Wes, I'll turn the time over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Cody. Yeah, I just want to echo what Cody has said. I think one of my biggest struggles, so I've been with Extension just now starting my third year, and I'm based in Wasatch County, in Heber City, and I cover Wasatch and Summit. And so there's unique climate, short growing season, and so there's a lot of influx, right? In Utah in general, in my counties and maybe specific, a lot of people coming in that are used to gardening. If they have been gardening, they're used to gardening somewhere else. And so, for them to come and ask, what's the best tomato to grow here? What's the best, insert any vegetable crop here? Like Cody said, I think my issue has been, I don't have that experience, right? I've been growing in this area for 2 years now, and we've been testing a lot of things, but frankly, there's hundreds of people in this area who have more experience than me. And so the goal I see for Extension in this realm and variety selection in general is to be able to facilitate a tool that conglomerates the community wisdom in a way that's more data driven. So it's not all one-off anecdotes. I did this, it worked for me, but to kind of aggregate that all together so we can start seeing trends, and that is where I see it being quite powerful. So moving on here, maybe if I can make this okay. So I wanted to, like Cody said, touch on some tools that have been done elsewhere, and kind of talk about some of maybe some potential pros and cons of them, and then finally to walk through what we're hoping to develop. So here I'm showing you a screenshot from Cornell University's extension program at Cornell, the vegetable varieties for gardeners. So they started this, Cornell, they're ahead of the curve. They started this 20-ish years ago. I think this website was made in 2006 and it hasn't been updated since. But they state the concept is simple. Gardeners visit the vegetable varieties for gardener site and report what varieties perform well and not so well in their gardens. So you can see here, it's a simple interface. You've got the vegetable varieties, got an overall rating, and then some reviews, some other information. It's nice. So it's kind of a standalone web portal. You can create a profile in which you give kind of your contextual information, where you're growing, how you're growing, that can give some context for your review, which of course is very important to really draw anything out of those reviews. And then, you create your profile and then you review away. So, we're looking here at this Tasty Nuggets Brussels sprouts, and it's got several reviews. I'm only showing 2 here in the screenshot, but it's a very simple review process, right? So you can see it's a star-based rating, an overall, a taste, yield and ease, and then kind of an open-ended, tell us what you like. So Cornell, again, being kind of an early adopter of this model, this citizen science kind of crowdsourcing model, it gained traction. There's reviews submitted from all over the nation and potentially all over the world. And there's thousands of reviews that are submitted for thousands of vegetables varieties. What I really like about this platform, what they have, is that it's quite simple. Like I said, they're not getting too much into the weeds. And you can set up a profile, and so you have all that context, and then you just get on and review those vegetable varieties. I would offer that we could maybe collect a few more pieces of data that could make that even more useful, and then potentially having a better interface. And this isn't bad mouthing theirs at all. They would say this. They recently had a video where they were going over this, and they talked about lack of funding, and like I said, they haven't updated that interface since 2006. So it's a bit clunky. I've tried to create a profile several times, and I have not been successful yet. So that's one thing we would maybe change about what we're seeing with their tool. But their output is awesome, right? So they have a regularly updated list of suggested varieties based on the reviews from that tool. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight, like Cody has, that website, that tool is available 24/7. You can look at it, you can bookmark the page, you can go back and see it. Whereas with a lot of these, word of mouth, whether that be physical or virtual, those things are lost in the doom scroll. And so having this all preserved, I think, is a really, really great resource. Another tool, it's called Grow and Tell. So this was developed by the University of Alaska Fairbanks recently, I guess, kind of 2016. And they've got this cool interface where you can see things by map. You can scroll into your area and see what kind of reviews have been made. So this is a screenshot of Utah. We've got a few people that have reviewed using this tool. And you can see what kind of the ratings are. So the variety, overall, taste, yield, reliability. You can also view it by the crop as opposed to the map view, and a few things we like. So again, it's a more attractive interface. It's an app you can get on your cell phone. Some things that we change, maybe, if I go back to this, that's all I can really see of that. You don't see these aggregates of those reviews. So a little more information again, and maybe some more robust reviews. Have some free response. The last tool that we're kind of, really investigating to see how they're doing things is called SeedLinked. I think this is an awesome app. They're not paying me for this, but it's kind of a decentralized plant breeding app. So you can join trials where you're growing, certain varieties, and then you report on that progress on that trial through this app. And included in that, there's a lot of reviews on the vegetable trials and the vegetable varieties they're growing. So I really liked about this. It's a lot more in depth. A shout out to Moki. Okay, Moki, if you're here listening, we need you to use our tool too. because Moki's been given some sweet reviews on Seedlinked. And they're quite in depth, right? And so I think that's awesome about this tool. It is kind of far reaching in its goals. And so we're going to try and, simplify and start smaller. But these are just a few examples, right, of some tools. The idea of aggregating, community knowledge is not a new one. It's been done a million different iterations. We would just like to see that develop in Utah, to have, like our goal stated, a really hyper local resource. Everyone wants to see stuff that was grown in their area. And by crowdsourcing, by having everyone participate, we can really do that, and the resolution can be really, really great. So I'm gonna now, first, I say I'd simplify the goals of the tool. This tool jargon, right now, our tool is just a survey, right? So it's another survey, and here's my best illustration or animation there. We all hate surveys. Everyone groans about surveys. I hate making surveys as much as you hate taking them. But I really do think this could be an awesome tool. And the hope is that as we get some proof of concept, if we get some buy-in, some community buy-in, we'll be able to get some funding to create a standalone app that will be maybe a little more exciting than, your Qualtrics or Survey 123 survey. But for right now, that's where we're at. I'm including here a link to that survey. So when you get these slides, or if you want to access these slides, you can look at that. We'll also be posting the survey on the Utah Gardening Experts. We'll have that as a pinned little banner. The great thing about this, and I'm going to walk through this now, is that you can go back and rate previous things that you've grown, right? So it doesn't have to be just this year. So with some participation from you all and your neighbors and friends and colleagues, this could be quite an exponential growth in the database. So
And then
with that,
then it's
yeah.
back on us to get you the information back out to you, So we'll
Correct.
be doing the hard
Yeah.
part.
So and the hope is, again, that once we have a standalone, web portal and app, that's going to then be accessible to you. As it stands right now, with this survey, we'll be publishing those online at the garden.usu.edu website. But as I said, this is just a ArcGIS survey. It's a survey 123. We're hopeful that it's simple enough that it won't discourage you, but that it gets enough information to be useful to you. So the start is just, the blurb that we've been pitching for the last few minutes. What I do want to highlight here is at the bottom here, we would love, studies have shown that research is better and it better meets the needs of the community if the community is participating in that. It's a shocker. But the hope is to not only have communication and participation with the tool that we've created, but to also get your insights on what would make a better tool. So that's what this is here. This will link you to yet another survey, which is really just a text box to enter in thoughts you have on how to make this better. So we solicit you to take that, to let us know once you've looked through this, what would make this better, or what do you not like about it? We're really interested in making this the most useful that it can be. So initially, as you walk through this survey, you've got some context questions, right? So your location, I'm in Wasatch. I'm going to do this really quick to show a few features of this. I'm in Heber City, if I can spell it. Gardening, I'm going to say intermediate. I might be a little generous. I'm gardening in ground. I have more than 8 hours a day. Well, my irrigation method, right? So we're interested in understanding how you're irrigating your crop. Are you using drip irrigation? Nutrient management. So again, are you adding fertilizers, compost? We've just again broken it down into kind of this binary, which give this third option if you're kind of in between, right? So I'll say I'm using both. Were season extension methods used? Okay, so this is again a big catch-all, but if you're growing in low tunnels or high tunnels, you'd answer yes, right? I do use season extension methods. And again, this is going to be dependent on the crop you're reviewing, right? So if I'm using season extension methods for my tomatoes, I do yes. If I'm not doing it for my lettuce or whatnot, I'd say no. The review date, that should auto-populate, so you shouldn't have to touch that. What year did you grow this review? So this is like what I said, I can go back and say, I did this last year and review a variety. Crop, we've got most of the commonly grown ones. If we don't have one that you're growing, again, submit that. We'll change that. But we'll say kale, and I said I just did Russian red. So now it starts getting into, sorry, and I missed this. The evaluation questions, above was the context. We want to know what the environment is, kind of what the context is for you growing. The next is the actual review, right? So you give the crop, you give the variety. We're interested in a lot of these crops and how early they're producing, right? And again, not trying to make this too onerous. We're just, split it up in 5 things. Was it ready very early season, mid-season, late, very late? Let's say it was ready early season. And then again, like we saw in some of those other tools, just rating some of these things that we're interested, right, in knowing. How was the flavor? How was the yield, the disease resistance, overall ease of growing? And then kind of this, catch-all, would you do it again? Would you grow that again? So just for sake of this, straight fours, don't do that unless it was all straight fours. And then this one I think could be helpful for people who are looking to source the seeds, right? If you know where you got those seeds, you can put that in. That'll be helpful for your neighbors and understanding, what seed vendors have which seed sources available. And then at the bottom is again this extended review. So give us all that you want to, right? You don't have to say anything, but I think again, as we saw in some of those other tools, this can be very useful. The tips, the tricks, what you liked, what you didn't, anything finicky, you can put that in. As you submit that, the chance here, that's kind of hard to see here, but press here to submit another response. So you can go in here, it'll take you back. But what's helpful about this, I think, and hopefully it is for you, all these context questions have a memory, right? So they're going to save what you entered in. So unless you're doing something different, say, for example, this season extension method, you shouldn't have to change any of those. So hopefully that lowers the time and anything that's going to be discouraging to use it. All of the evaluation questions, those you're going to need to fill in, right? Because that's the evaluation. That's the review. So a brief, quick crash course in what we're hoping. Again, the idea is that we create a tool that's combining the community knowledge and wisdom into something that is more data-driven. And we would love your participation in this. Again, that's something that we really value. Oh, another survey. This is this QR code will take you again right to that survey. And as I showed, there's a link to give suggestions for the survey. Happy to take any questions now if we have time. What time is it?
I just wanted to say that I noticed that a few people had asked about like hosting trials at like a community garden and stuff. And we do have aspirations to take this data to do our own trials that are a little bit more controlled. So maybe Wes, do you want to explain that quickly or?
Yeah. If you want to know what we would like to do, you can visit that Cornell site. So they have kind of 2 companion programs. One is like we showed here today, a veggie review. You grow anything, let us know, let your neighbor know. And this is just is a database for that. The companion program is based off some of those reviews. You know, like Cody said, we're planning to select a few of those varieties each year in each crop and outsource that again with a little more structure so that we can have some more in-depth reviews of varieties. And the hope is, the idea is, with that being a perpetually renewing program, we can cover a lot of ground. And again, it can be, we'll have data points in a lot of locations. So that's in the works. Yeah, so stay tuned. We hope to get that going soon.